Welcome to Instruction Discussion, our weekly look at the latest topics and trends in education affecting schools here on Long Island and schools around the world. Whether you're a teacher, parent, or student, listen for tips and strategies to help you navigate the educational landscape. There's a bell. It's time to start today's Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello, I'm Kevin Boston Hill, and welcome to Instruction Discussion, where each week we will examine a recent trend or development in education and its impact on Long Island. Today, we explore a somewhat controversial topic from an even more controversial source. On the heels of the Black Lives Matter movement is the I Am Black campaign started by charter schools nationwide. The I Am Black campaign is based on three simple statements. I am Black, I support charter schools, and I vote. Joining us in class today to discuss this campaign and explain more about what charter schools mean to communities of color is Richard Buery, president of the Achievement First Charter School Network. Mr. Buery, welcome to Instruction Discussion on 90.3 WHPC.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to speak with you this morning.
So, before we actually delve into today's class, and I noticed that you have such a storied career. Can you tell us a little bit about how you actually arrived to Achievement First?
Sure. I think for me, it really starts with my life growing up. I grew up in Brooklyn, in East New York, Brooklyn, which is a community on the border of Queens, primarily Black and Latino neighborhood. And it's a community that for a long time has really struggled with education options for Black and Latino kids who live there. Neighborhood schools were not strong, they were not safe. My mom was a public school teacher. She taught for almost 40 years at the same public high school in Brooklyn. And she was able to help me and my sisters navigate the excellent public schools. And that included going to a school in Bushwick, a middle school that was for gifted and talented students. Included going to Stuyvesant High School, one of the premier public high schools in the country. My sisters also went to a variety of schools around the city, and we were lucky that we got a great public school education in New York. But I also knew growing up that the education I was receiving at schools like IS 383 in Bushwick and at Stuyvesant was just not the same as the education that many of the kids I grew up with were receiving. And for me, that really sparked a lifelong passion to try to make sure that more children, and particularly more Black children from neighborhoods like East New York, had the opportunity to get the kind of great schooling that I got. But you shouldn't have to take a test to get that kind of education. And I've been trying to figure it out one way or the other ever since.
Great. Yeah, I know that has been a kind of a sticking point with education, especially in New York City, with regards to the specialized high school exams and things that some people figure, it's time to do away with those types of entrance, those high stakes exams at the high school level, and give everybody that opportunity, or at least take those strategies that you're using in the specialized schools and in those resources and spread them across to the other schools as well to get that educational equity across the board and not just for a select few schools.
Absolutely. A city like New York has an obligation to make sure that each and every student has an excellent education. It shouldn't matter what neighborhood you live in. It shouldn't matter your zip code. It shouldn't matter your income. It certainly should matter whether or not you were able to get test prep support so that you can take one of those tests to get into one of New York's elite schools. Every student should have an access to a great education. And I really believe that charter schools can be part of that menu. Not for everybody, but in a city of 1.1 million children and in a nation of over 70 million children who are attending public school, I believe that charter schools can be part of the options of making sure that every student in every community have great choices, great options for their kids.
So, let's talk about that a little bit, because I know, as I alluded to in the intro, there's a little controversy surrounding charter schools. And because especially in recent years, I guess going back almost 10 years now, there's been some backlash because some people feel that charter schools are private schools and they're getting public funding for their students, and they kind of cherry pick the students as well. So let's set the record straight. Are charter schools public schools or private schools?
So I think so much of this is just, so much of the way people feel about charter schools is based on misinformation. So let's get a few things straight. Charter schools are public schools everywhere. They are public schools that are created to close opportunity gaps that we see in public education and to make sure that every child has access to a high-quality education. They are public schools, open to everyone. They do not charge tuition. You do not have to take a test to get in. Charter schools cannot pick and choose which students attend. To the extent that they can give preferences, it's to students who live in the community or students who have particular high needs. And when a school has too many students who apply, more students who apply than seats, they have to distribute that seats on the basis of a lottery. So it's important to start with the idea that charter schools are public schools. The difference between a charter school and a district school is that in a district school, the district school is run by the school district, the New York City Department of Education, or the district in whatever town you're in. For public schools, they are run by community partners, nonprofit organizations, social service agencies. Those partners provide a public education, and it's a way of bringing new energy, new ideas, some entrepreneurial spirit into the public school system, but they are absolutely 100% public schools.
I knew that, but I just wanted to make sure that for the rest of our listeners out there, because having worked in charter schools myself, that was one of the biggest things that or criticisms that I received on a lot of different fronts. So I just wanted to have somebody hear it from someone other than me, so that it wasn't just information out there. So thank you for that.
No, and what's so interesting is that I think in so many other contexts, the idea of having nonprofits partner with government to provide services is just not controversial, like after-school programs or hospitals, in all sorts of different contexts. We're really used to the idea that nonprofits can work with government to deliver essential and quality services to families. Charter schools are no different. It's just another flavor of the same idea.
We know that currently about 70% of our charter schools, I guess nationwide, serve Black and brown communities. So what role, other than that, do charter schools play in the public school sector?
Well, I think fundamentally public schools are about creating more options for families who lack options. So, where I grew up, again, I grew up in East New York, Brooklyn, District 19. I had a zone elementary school, a zone middle school, and a zone high school. Those are the schools you were supposed to attend if you lived in that block. The problem is that my zone elementary school, my zone middle school, and my zone high school just weren't doing a good job of educating kids. And for too many families of color around too many cities and communities around the country, that's the unfortunate fact, that just as the governments of America have often failed Black families in areas such as public safety, just as we've often failed Black families in areas such as public health. Everyone who studied American history, who is aware of American history, understands that America has not done right by Black and Latino children. And that didn't end with Brown versus Board of Education. It's not like when the Supreme Court ruled in Brown versus Board of Education that segregation was illegal, and all of a sudden educational opportunity was made a reality across America. So fundamentally, I think part of what charter schools do is in neighborhoods where families don't have a lot of great options, it creates another option for families, another place for you to go and see if you can't get for your child the kind of education that works for you. It doesn't mean that every charter school is great. There are some charter schools that are fantastic and others that are not, just like there are some district schools that are fantastic and others that are not. And it doesn't mean that every charter school is the same or for you. Different charter schools have different philosophies of teaching. Some focus on the arts or music. Others may focus on math or science. But again, the question is, if you are a Black family or a Latino family in a neighborhood where your local zone school is not doing a great job for you, or at least it doesn't feel like it's going to fit for you for whatever reason, why shouldn't you have different opportunities and why shouldn't you have different options? That's something that other families take for granted. Families with means make choices for their kids all the time. They can choose to send their kids to private school. They choose to move to another neighborhood where the public schools are stronger. They can choose to invest resources in test prep so that you can get into one of these specialized schools. I just believe that all families should have access to a great education, whether or not you have money, whether or not you have resources. It shouldn't be that hard, and I just think that charter schools can be part of the solution, not for everybody, but for many families.
Let's talk a little bit about Achievement First then, since that's the network you're currently heading. But before we actually get there, I guess, why did you come to Achievement First? Because again, especially since your career, you were at KIPP for a while, there was another charter school network, and then you also worked within the New York City Department of Education for some time, and I think you were also part of the push for the Pre-K for All initiative in New York City. So what led you to come to Achievement First after all of that?
Yeah, I've been so lucky that I've been able to spend so much of my career working for kids, and New York City kids in particular. And so coming to Achievement First for me is the next logical step for me in that story. So first of all, Achievement First operates in 3 states around the country, but 23 of those schools, 23 of our 37 schools are in Brooklyn. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, and so one of the reasons why I was so excited to come to Achievement First is because so much of our work is in Brooklyn, and in fact, so much of our work is in the neighborhoods where I grew up and spent my time growing up. We have a number of schools in the East New York neighborhood where I grew up, including one just 7 blocks from my home, where my parents still live, where I grew up. We have a middle school, which is located in the building where I went to middle school, where I spent 4 years of my life, 5th to 8th grade. So one of our schools is located in that building. And so I just have a lot of affinity for Achievement First because of where it does the work. And I was also a part of helping Achievement First when it first came to New York. When Achievement First, which started in Connecticut over 20 years ago, first came to Brooklyn, I was honored to serve as the chair of our school board here when we first came into the community. So in a lot of ways, it feels like coming home to the neighborhoods where I grew up and was first educated, coming home to an organization that I was proud to help grow in its early years in New York City. And it feels like the perfect fit for my work and my mission, which is all about making sure that every kid in communities like East New York or Bushwick or Brownsville has the opportunity to go to a great school where they are loved, where they are valued, where they experience joy, where they are challenged, and where they are learning. And that's what we try to do with Achievement First every day. And I just feel really blessed to have a chance to be a part of it.
So you may have touched on this a little bit earlier, but what actually does set Achievement First apart from not only the surrounding district schools that it's in close proximity to, but other charter schools within the same cities that may share space with them? Sure.
And look, and for me, I just want to say it's not so much about competition and what makes one school better than the other, because, as I said, different schools may be a fit for different people. But I am incredibly proud of the Achievement First track record. And we've been at this for 20 years. So one thing is that we have a track record across those 3 states of completely closing gaps in reading and math. Just to give an example, in Rhode Island, Achievement First students outperform not only students in Providence as a whole, but in the entire state of Rhode Island. We even outperform students in Massachusetts, which has one of the best public school systems in the country. If you look at our work in New York, again, our scholars are significantly outperforming other students around the state. So we are proud of the high quality instruction we offer to children, but we're also proud of the school environments we try to create, which are environments that are characterized by joy, a love of learning, by caring. And like all other schools and organizations, we are really a work in progress. We are not perfect by any means. I'll tell you that the challenge of managing schools during this COVID pandemic has knocked us for a loop, like it's knocked every other educator for a loop. I just have to give a shout out to every principal, every teacher out there today who is working hard under difficult circumstances to make a way for our kids, because it's not easy. But one of the things that I'm really proud of about Achievement First is our ability to tackle challenges head on. And COVID is no exception. When the crisis hit, we closed those schools before the city did because we realized the public health threats. We immediately pivoted to trying to have some of the best remote learning in the country, and we've gotten, again, not perfect, but we've gotten great accolades. By the way, we've been able to deliver a high-quality educational experience online, and that included distributing thousands of devices, of Chromebook devices, distributing hundreds of MiFi internet devices so people have the devices they need to get online, and then really pivoting quickly to try to figure out how do we deliver an engaging, supportive, rigorous education in an online environment. And so that's the challenge we're still under, but I think more than anything, and I'm really proud of Achievement First, is our ability time and time again to face challenges and to deliver for kids.
You are listening to Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Kevin Boston Hill, and our guest today is Richard Buery, president of the Achievement First Charter School Network. Let's get into one of the reasons why you're here today, and that's to just talk about the I Am Black campaign. Exactly what is that, what started it, and what do you hope to get out of this campaign this year?
Well, I think for me, it goes to where you started, that there's so much misinformation or just a misunderstanding about what charter schools are and who charter schools are. And so for me, as a Black man who has spent my life in education, spent my life working on behalf of communities of color, it's important for me to stand up and say why I do this work and what this work is. And across the country, there are amazing educators, including Black educators, who are working day in and day out in charter schools across the country to ensure that the children of their communities have a great education. And across the country, there are parents, millions of parents, including Black and Latino parents, as you said, the majority of charter school students around the country are students of color, who are every day making the choice that these schools are, for whatever reason, the best option for their children. And so it's important to us that we stand up and make our voices heard. Too often, education remains one of the most polarizing subjects in the country. And for me, as a proud Democrat, somebody who's going to do everything I can to make sure that we have much needed political change in our country, one of the things that I want to make sure is that the Democratic Party, the party I belong to, the party I support, a party that every election it wins, and if it wins this election, it will be because Black people, including especially Black women who are the most loyal Democratic voters, come out and vote for the Biden-Harris ticket. We want to make sure that our voices are represented in the halls of the Democratic Party as well. And so for me, this is about just standing up for who we are and what we believe in, and making sure that all the institutions that represent us truly represent us and are accountable to our voices as well.
How far is this outreach? Because I know you mentioned that at least the Achievement First networks are in 3 states, and so is this going to be a national push, a national campaign, and how are you doing your outreach?
Absolutely. It's a national campaign everywhere from California to New York and everywhere in between. And part of the way we're doing it is by talking to leaders like you, getting out to the grassroots, making sure that people understand who we are and what we are. And part of the challenge is, I think, there's a caricature of charter schools in many communities. There's this idea that we are a movement of people who want to end public education, or that we're a movement of wealthy billionaires who are trying to undermine the public schools. And part of it for me is just telling you that's not who we are, and that's not who I am. I wish I was a billionaire. I am not, according to Citibank, I am not. What I am is a Black man from New York who spent my life working for our kids. And I just want people to understand that that's the people who are at charter schools. Our teachers, our school leaders, often overwhelmingly people of color, our parents, and our students, often overwhelmingly people of color. And we just want to make sure that people are actually understanding who we are and what we believe in. And that way we can have a real and productive debate about the role that we play in the public education system of America.
So where can people go to find out more information about this tremendous campaign, and how can they get involved if they so choose to?
Well, one of the things I hope folks will do is one of the sponsors of this work is the National Association of Public Charter Schools, which is a national organization that represents charter schools around the country. So I would encourage people to go to our website, go to the National Association's website to learn more about our work, and to get involved in your local community. If you're in New York, you can go to the website of the New York City Charter School Center. It's a great place to go to learn more about charter schools in your community. And really just to get involved, to read up, to learn more. And when you have a chance to sort of engage with your neighbors, your friends, or other elected officials about charter schools, just be informed and ask real questions about if somebody doesn't support charter schools, ask them why. Because I think oftentimes what you'll find is that most of the opposition is not based on the facts, but is really based on misinformation or misunderstandings about what our schools really are, and most fundamentally, who we are, who are the people who lead and work in these schools every day.
And I know a few years ago there was a movie that, well, I guess a documentary really, that came out, Waiting for Superman, and that kind of cited the whole charter schools. And I think a lot of people, as you said, may have gotten a misconception of what charter schools actually do, and the families in which they serve, and the people who go there. And I think you clarified a lot of that during the course of this conversation today. So tell us a little bit more about the students and the families that are really served, not just by charter schools in general, but by Achievement First schools in particular. Who are the families and students who attend your schools?
Sure. And as you were talking, I looked up the website just to make it easier for your listeners. If you go to charterswork.com, that's CHARTERSWORK, charterswork.com. That's a great place to learn more about our schools, to figure out how you can take action, how you can let policymakers here in New York or across the country learn about why you support charter schools and why these are such an important part of our portfolio, and why more communities should have access to more schools. So definitely encourage people to go to charterswork.com. In terms of our students, we serve 15,000 students in 3 states, New York, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. 98% of our students are Black and Latino. The vast majority of those students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. So these are kids from the city, like any other kids from the city, whose parents every day wake up and try to figure out how to build a strong life for their children and their family. So that's who we serve. We serve primarily Black and Latino children in neighborhoods like East New York and Brownsville, in neighborhoods like Hartford and Providence, all around the country. And I'm so proud of our students. Our students, they work so hard every day, and they are kicking butt. They attend college at far higher rates than their peers. They're better prepared when they get there, and they complete college at 5 times the rate of similarly situated students. Our schools are rigorous. Our students come to school and they love learning. They work hard. They also play and they have fun. They do art and music and dance and sports like everybody else. I'm just every day blown away by the amazing talent of our students and by the incredible hard work of our teachers. Even more so now, given the challenges of operating schools during this pandemic, now more than ever.
And I know you mentioned that 98% of your students are Black or Brown students, Black and Latino students. So what about your faculty? How is your faculty represented? What's the diversity makeup of your faculty?
Yeah, our faculty similarly is predominantly Black and Latino. I think like a lot of organizations, it has been as a result of very intentional work. So over the years, we have intentionally sought to seek out and elevate leaders of color. We know that the research is overwhelming, that even having one teacher of color can make a tremendous difference for Black and Latino students. It has demonstrable effects on young people's long-term educational achievement and attainment. So for a number of reasons, we are really committed to continuing to increase those numbers. But It doesn't just happen. You have to be intentional about it. And it's something that Achievement First is incredibly intentional about. And we do much better now than we did 20 years ago. And certainly I should say, the teaching force is more diverse, for example, than the New York City District Schools teaching force. And I think you'll find that in a lot of communities. It's something that we work on doing very intentionally.
Excellent. And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners wanted to hear that because we see that in a lot of cases, the students don't get to see people in front of them who look like them when they're sitting in their classes. So I think that's a really big load off for them. If you had to leave our audience with one final thought, whether it be about the I Am Black campaign or just charter schools in general, what is that thing that you want our listeners to know?
That's a great question. If I had to leave your listeners with one thought, it would be simply this: trust parents. Trust parents. Fundamentally, what charter schools are about is saying to communities, saying to parents, that if your neighborhood school is not doing right by your kids, you should not be limited by the shortcomings of that school. That families should have a say in what's best for their kids. And so when you say to a family that charter schools are wrong or there shouldn't be a charter school in your community, what you're saying to Black and Latino parents is that they don't know what's best for those kids. Those 3.3 million families who every day send their child to a charter school around the country. You're saying to those families that they don't know what's best for their kids. I don't believe that. You don't believe that. I know our listeners don't believe that. And so fundamentally, that's what I would want to leave your listeners with. Trust parents to know what's best for their kids.
Well, thank you again for those words of wisdom. And of course, we love to thank our guest today, Mr. Richard Buery, president of the Achievement First Charter School Network, for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope you and your listeners have a great day. Stay safe and wear your mask and vote. Thank
you. And you do the same. And my name is Kevin Boston Hill, and thank you for listening to Instruction Discussion right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.